come to you this day in love and in light and in truth. Is this acceptable to you?
Yes.
So we ask to create or co-create this communication this day, to give a little bit of information about what's actually happening for many on the planet at this moment. And it's that journey from 3D to 5D. Now, why don't we say 4D? Because 4D is actually where it's playing out in a lot of ways. And in order to understand it, we would like to explain a little bit about how the human psyche works, the human energy field works, because most of you that are listening to this are already an enlightened being in the sense of your soul, not your physical consciousness. Your human consciousness is playing out a lot of roles, and it's also being triggered by past experiences as a soul or inherited. So your spirit is enlightened, your soul is enlightened. It is not a 3D soul. It's not a 4D soul. It's not a 5D soul. It's beyond that. And so what you're wanting to figure out is how to house it in a physical body so that you can transform the planet that you live upon. Well, not the planet, the situation that's happening on the planet that you live upon. The planet itself is we wouldn't say it's fine, but it's going to be fine. And the reason we don't say it's fine is because it's polluted and people are treating it badly. But it has a soul. And it's the principle of its soul is the feminine first. Yet the masculine has tried to conquer it, which is kind of interesting when you look at how the masculine principle has tried to conquer the feminine over the centuries. So when you move from 3D to 5D, there are a few principles you need to understand, and that is this. The mental and physical bodies or planes of existence work together. So what you think, you create in the physical, right? So there's been a lot of teachings about that. A lot of people are very aware about that. It works quite well. Has worked quite well. But it stopped working for many. So they're thinking about something, they're willing something, they're placing their meditation on it, but it's still not working. Now, what's 5D all about? It's about unity consciousness. So you can't just use one aspect of your being. So physical, mental is masculine aspect of the soul, we could say. The soul's experience, the physical body's experience. Feeling, emotion, and spiritual is the feminine aspect. So there are many people trying to get into the spiritual aspect through their mind, through their physical. How do they do that? Well, they physically exercise, they eat right, they fast, they say their affirmations, they concentrate on something happening, willing it to happen. And yes, it worked in the past. It's not really working that well right now. For many, it's not working. Because when you go into unity consciousness, which is 5D, those two aspects of self must be coherent. They must be in alignment. They must work together. One not more predominant than the other. So what you have going on the planet at the moment is a lot of emotions, right? People are very emotional. So what's the key to getting into the fifth? It's actually cleaning up your emotions. So, and we've spoken about this. How manifestation works is spiritual whether you like it or not, you have the inspiration. That inspiration comes from either yourself or an outside source that is wanting that to be present on the earth. So the inspiration can come from your higher self, from your own intuition, intuitive knowing, or it can come from other beings that are working with you or with the planet. Then it goes into the mental plane of existence, which you think about it, you know, ruminate around it, you talk to others about it, then it moves into the emotional state. When you talk to others about it, what sort of response do you get? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel bad about it? And then it moves into the physical, which is bringing it to fruition. Now, for many, it stops at the emotional when their friends or the people around them say, not a good idea, this is what can go wrong, you know, etc., etc. So people then get a bad vibe around it. They don't feel supported around it. They don't feel that they have the energy to do it or the knowledge to do it or what have you, and they stop it there. They stop it, and it doesn't get manifested. So we will use emotion, but it's also feeling. Feelings and emotions are slightly different. Feelings are how spirit communicates with you. Emotions are reactions to your thought field and to the world around you. They're responses to the world around you as well. So if someone wants to make you feel guilty or shame, that's an emotion, right? Mm-hmm. Someone may want you to feel excited about their idea. That's also an emotion. Someone might want you to feel really bad. They might want you to feel hate by telling you something. So it's all done in the mind area, but it's triggering an emotion. And emotions are energy emotions. So it's triggering an energy. What's that energy? It's a lost energy, perhaps a forgotten energy from something past, whether it's this life or another life or ancestral. It's triggering you in a way emotionally. So it could trigger the fact that no one listens to you. It could trigger your anger around not feeling important, not feeling wanted, not feeling worthy, not feeling loved, feeling powerless. All of these things get triggered. And they're triggered by mental constructs. So, feelings, on the other hand, are how spirit communicates with you or how your higher self communicates with you. Okay, so let's just set a precedent here. When we refer to spirit, we are referring to, in this context, your higher self, your own spirit, and your guides and those that are working with the planet. We'll just put it as a broad spectrum because otherwise we're going to have to use too many words here. So when spirit wants to communicate with you, it communicates through feelings. And those feelings are usually positive, such as calm, peace, warm love, blissfulness, clarity. Yeah, those feelings are usually very, very balanced and what you would call positive, because spirit doesn't communicate with you in a negative way unless it's a dark spirit, and then it will trigger an emotion. So a dark spirit could say to you, that person's done this to you, you should be angry at them. And it will trigger an emotion. Yeah, they've done the wrong thing by me. Right? Meaning the government, everything, done the wrong thing by me. A positive spirit will say, they've done the wrong thing by you, but walk away. Focus on this positive thing that you can awaken. Become part of this movement to stop it from happening to everyone else, right? So it will lead you in somewhere positive, which will make you feel empowered, not disempowered. Because you're placing something positive in that arena. So in order to get to 5D, these 4 elements of self need to be in alignment, meaning for most of you, you've been riding the landscape, let's say, of the mental plane. So you've been looking at your belief systems, looking at your patterns, looking at your past, looking at your world, understanding where the trickery is, where the conspiracy theory really is, where the corruption is, where the hatred is. You know, you've understood it mentally. You know, you can read. You've understood it. And your physical self is in alignment with that. So you place yourself in physical surroundings that ensure that you are safe, that you are informed, that you are taken care of, that you are prepared, etc. So that we understand. But what's really playing out, because the mental and the physical has been such a playground of manifestation for thousands of years, the emotional and feeling center with the spirit has been, could we say, forgotten, hidden, right? Let's look at that from even the war's perspective. When you look at these beautiful young men that went to war and experienced horrendous situations, came back, so their physical was met, you know, their wounds. How was their mental met? Oh, we'll give them medication, we'll give them electric shock treatment, we will tell them to just push it down. So their emotional body became an explosion within that caused even more physical responses and emotional outbursts. So their emotional state was never addressed. What happened to their spirit was never addressed. And that created an emotional toxicity that is playing out in the planet right now. So you don't have a physical third world war, but what you have is a consciousness war, and that consciousness war is being played out in the emotional, spiritual realms. And how it's being triggered is through the mental and physical. Look, you have to be worried about this. You must defend yourself. These people, you know, we must hate these people. Black against white. One political party against the other. How is this unity? It's not. So let's look how slowly, because if you think that, we'll just call it the darkness, and the darkness covers all the genres, whether you are understanding of alien presence or interdimensional presence or just pure evil and destruction. For us, it's all darkness. So if we look at the darkness, we could say the darkness has been in receipt of information, the same as the light, that says planet Earth is going to be a 5D planet. It's moving back to that. It was in the beginning, it got destroyed, and it fell into a 3D reality with 4D beings operating it all. Why do we say 4D? Because 4D is psychic, operating and influencing your minds, right? And now you have a cleansing of this. So these dark beings understood, okay, there is going to be a series of events that will happen that will move planet Earth and its inhabitants, those willing to go, into 5D. So how are we going to counteract that? Okay, how do we counteract that? We stop them from being in alignment. What is the alignment? Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. These things need to be in alignment. How do we do that? Okay, so the mental and the physical we like, because we like operating in the physical. This we find easy. And what aspects do we like about the physical? We like the drugs, the sex, the depravity, or we love this, you know? So, yeah, we will play it out in those realms. So, that's the masculine. So, the masculine is now going to dominate. What is the feminine? Emotional, feeling, spirit. So, we're going to destroy that. How are we going to destroy it? Well, first of all, we're going to use religion to say that women don't have a soul. Well, that sort of has now dissipated. Okay, in some cultures we're going to say they're worth less than a goat and cover them up and not allow them to be present, and we've spoken about this before. And what else are we going to do? We're going to deny emotions and feelings and psychic and energy. We're going to deny all of that. No, it doesn't exist. So we're going to say, if you cannot see it, touch it, taste it, it doesn't exist. That's the mental and physical, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So we're going to deny that other area, which is the divine feminine. We're going to deny it all. And as people started to awaken, and as these children 20 odd years ago started to be born, you call them indigos or whatever, who had a different type of energy that was going to scream the truth out to the world. What did they do? They numbed them down with medication. What does medication do? It places you in a part of your mind and shuts down the emotional. So now you've got an epidemic of depression, anxiety, ADHD, all of this. Even someone who speaks out the truth is mad, so we best put them on medication. Someone who has an emotional reaction to something is mad, best put them on medication. Who were the first ones to have these emotional reactions? Women. Women in history were, and what did they do to them? They put them in mental institutions. If you were to look at the history of what women were placed in mental institutions for in the 1800s, 1900s, what was it for? Losing a child, crying, reading was an emotional illness, therefore we best put them in a mental institution and experiment on them. So we're not going to elaborate on that because the history is there for you to look up if you bother to Google it. If you could be bothered to read something, you'll find all of that in the history. And there are plenty of people that will give you that information through videos and movies, etc. What happened to the divine feminine throughout history to shut down the emotional, spiritual aspect of your being. Why? Because they knew 5D was coming, and they've known for a long time. And what did the light know? Exactly the same. And what did the light do? The light fought it, exposed it, helped, guided, led, gave out information, provided whistleblowers, provided people in those very industries to counteract it. And they did. And so what happened is then, 20 odd years ago, they said, okay, let's attack it from when they're really young. Let's get them when they're children. So they used vaccines, they used medication. Do you know that currently, as we speak, there are babies who are given antipsychotic drugs because they're crying? We're telling you the truth. You only need to do a little bit of research to find that out. Hideous. It's hideous. And so, the reason they want so many people on medication, why they want to put fluoride in the water, chemicals in the sky, etc., in the food, everything, is to shut down spirit, your connection to spirit, and your connection to your feelings and emotions, to shut them down. Because without access to them, you cannot go into the fifth. And so what you have at this moment, which is very interesting, You have people in emotional reaction. And when people are in emotional reaction rather than response, they're creating destruction. And how they put them in that emotional reaction is by giving them false information, telling them false information into their mind to say, hate this person is against you, this person is going to kill you, this. And as long as people are in emotional response, they're unable to go into their feeling, because emotional response is directly linked to the mind. It's a part of the mind. Okay, so let's look at that a little bit deeply. The reason we want to go into this is because as we're speaking, many of you are making connections. Many of you are going to move into what we're talking about and align yourselves as a result of this. And this is why we are making this communication to you this day. So we're asking you to go out of impatience and listen, because we're taking you on a journey to yourself, to unhook you from what's been influencing you. So let's look at the mind and how the mind is made up, right? Left and right hemispheres, correct? So the left is where you store your belief systems. Everything you read gets stored in there, right? It's analytical. It stores information. And it governs the right side of your body. The right is the Gestalt aspect of the brain. So it's creative, visualization, and emotion. And so what are these medications doing? They're shutting down the right, the feelings, the emotions. Well, not the feelings, the emotions. The ability to navigate those emotions and have a reaction or a response. So they're shutting down the feminine aspect of the human being with all of these chemicals and medications. We have personally heard of people who are women who are in menopause being given antidepressants to navigate menopause. We have come across individuals who've had physical pain and they've been given antidepressants for physical pain. We have spoken to those who have grieved the loss of a parent and instead of grieving, been given medication to shut down the grieving so they can go back to work or be normal or, not be sad anymore because the people around them don't like it. So these medications are being used to shut down your emotional response to life. And when you shut that down, you shut down your connection to feelings, because these are interlinked. Right? You shut it down to the feminine. And that's what they're doing. So we're not suggesting that anybody who's listening to this who's on medication immediately go off it. The only reason an individual would need to be on that sort of medication is if you are psychotic, if you are extreme bipolar or schizophrenic in the extreme, that is biochemical, and you have had blood tests and chemical examination to understand whether or not biochemically you do not have certain substances in your body. And that is the only reason for those medications. If you are on those medications because you lost someone, because you don't like where you work, because you're not coping with your family and its abuse or your partner's abuse, we would suggest that you very, very slowly choose whether or not you want to come into receipt of your truth and yourself, your whole self, and work with your medical doctor or your practitioner to gently wean yourself off them. We are not suggesting at any point that you just decide not to take them, because that will probably make things worse for you. Because what these chemicals are doing is severely damaging the function of your brain. And if you've been taking them long term, they will certainly do that. So it is truly not advisable for anyone to just go off them. And if you choose to go off them slowly with support, we would suggest that you take a product called Brahmi, ashwagandha, or Brahmi, ashwagandha. These two are very good. Maybe some passion flower, if you can. Depends. The passion flower, we would say, that's good for the nervous system. But for the brain itself, we'd say Brahmi and ashwagandha.
What about St. John's wort?
Well, we wouldn't suggest that until later on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you want to rebalance everything. St. John's wort is very good. It's hard to get because they know it's good. They want you to use the chemicals. Depends. It depends on what what the original diagnosis was, what you would use. Anyway, so what's been happening is a shutting down of the divine feminine through shutting down your emotional responses and reactions. And that in turn disconnects you completely from your feelings. And it also opens a doorway for you to be connected to beings that are not exactly in the light, that can influence your brain function even more with ideas, concepts, and beliefs. We would go so far as to say the individuals that are creating riots and destruction at the moment are heavily medicated on something. They're on something.
Mm-hmm.
And when you shut that down, let's say, your machinery such as Wi-Fi, telephones, computers, can emit certain frequencies that will affect you even more. Let's say you're in receipt of your whole self. You're not on any medication. You understand your feelings versus your emotions. You are in good health. You are mentally balanced. You're meditating to connect with spirit, etc. And they're using these vibrations, these messages through Wi-Fi, through technology. We could almost guarantee you that you wouldn't be so affected by it, and you'd probably pick up on it, or it would just pass through you, but you'd pick up on it. And that's the reason they want you to be medicated, so that you don't pick up on it, so that you don't go into the fifth, so that you're not completely balanced. So going into the fifth means that all these aspects of self need to be in harmony. Now, for some people, you might be highly intelligent, and the emotional aspect of yourself and the feeling aspect of yourself is let's say, not as active. That doesn't mean you're not in alignment. It just means that that's your predominant side of you.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that you have to be speaking to God in order to go into the fifth, and speaking with your guides, and clairvoyance, clairaudio, clairsentence, all has to be awakened for you to go into the fifth. No, it doesn't mean that at all. And for some, they might be on the other side, very, very sensitive, very in touch with their feelings and their emotions, very psychic, etc., but not so analytically intelligent, yeah? Not so academically intelligent, but they have emotional intelligence. That doesn't mean they don't go into the fifth. So it's all about balance, you see. As a soul, you have certain gifts that will be predominant. And some of those gifts may be related to the mental plane of existence and the physical. You may have a lot of information about history, science, the physical body. That's all intellectual, isn't it? It's all academic. It doesn't mean that you're not going to go into the fifth at all. That may be your spiritual gift. That may be your soul family's genre.
Mm-hmm.
And for some, it may be looking at energy, looking at physics, looking at mathematics, looking at how colors affect the body, how sound affects the body. But they may also need to study something, which means they have a balance of academia and spiritual knowledge. But you don't all have to have the same to go into the fifth. You just need to be in receipt of it, right? An acknowledgement of it. So some people who are right in their mind and in their physical body, they would say, they don't believe in energy. They don't believe in any of that stuff because they can't see it, they can't touch it, they can't taste it, therefore it doesn't exist. And we would say to them, you can't physically see the wind, but you can see the effect of it. You can't physically see gravity, but you can see the effect of it. You can feel the effectiveness of it. So just because you can't physically see spirit or devas or angelic realms doesn't mean they don't exist. Because there are many things you cannot see, but you're in receipt of it. At this moment, you cannot see with your physical eyes the molecular structure of water or a living cell. You can't see it. Mm-hmm. But if you use certain instruments, you can. Therefore, you can justify its existence. Mm-hmm. And what we are saying is that there are certain individuals that have the gift of being able to see that without an instrument. Does it mean that they themselves are insane and that they, it doesn't exist because this person can't find a machine, which actually they do have now many machines that can see into fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional realities, in fact. So science is catching up with spirit, it's catching up with it. And that's what the fifth is about. It's about taking your science to another level. But those that are catching up with it are being silenced because it doesn't fit the agenda of you're only mental and physical beings. Shut down those emotions. Don't cry. Don't get upset. Don't have fear. Don't be in reaction. Now, what's happening, so we can hear some of you going, but there are many people screaming, yes, because what's happening is, and we said this quite a number of years ago. We said it over 20 years ago, and we've repeated it many times. It will not matter where you are, what you do, what you take. You will not escape the fifth dimensional frequencies. So you can bury yourselves in bunkers. You can take as much medication, drugs, alcohol, do as much exercise, diet as you like to shut down your emotional self and your feeling self and the spiritual aspect of yourself. But you will not stop it because eventually it will all come out, right? And how it's presenting itself at the moment is through violence. And so what is the darkness doing? They're saying, oh, right, okay, so we can't stop people now from accessing their emotional self. Even with all of this that we're doing, we can't stop it, because the frequencies that are coming from the universe, the light forces that are coming from the universe, are actually activating your spirit. And what did we say? Your spirit is already enlightened. It's housed within the physical body. So your physical reality is responding to it. So what's happening is that people, are looking for different medications now. Stronger, stronger, more, more. Different distraction. It's not enough. So if you were to look at pornography, it's not enough to look at it. We've got to do it now. Oh, it's not enough just to do it with adults. We've got to do it with children, because it becomes more and more. It has to be more and more destructive to shut down your emotional landscape. For you to shut it down, it has to become more and more. When you see children that have been severely abused, what do? They shut down the emotional aspect of their mind because they cannot cope with what they're feeling, what they're experiencing. So what is all this highly sexualized information, videos, all of this? It's destructive. It's to shut down the emotions. What are all these high medicines? To shut down the emotions. What is all this violence on the games and the television? To shut down your emotions, because you cannot cope anymore. The battle is being held on the emotional, feeling spirit, because that is what the missing link is to put you in alignment with the fifth. So what we're asking you to do is, if you are engaged in any of that that's shutting you down, wean yourself off. For some, you'll need to go cold turkey, in the sense of no alcohol, no, we're not talking about medical drugs here, but no drugs. Nothing that's going to, okay, you've got all these people going into DMT and all of these sorts of drugs. What is it doing to your third eye, people? You are blasting your way into your pineal gland. You're blasting your way into the pineal gland. And why are you doing it? Because the world that you live in is distasteful for you. You don't like it. So you're going into this other world thinking you're going to find the answer. The answer is to live in the world that you're in and change that physical reality. Anything that you do that is addictive, anything, is taking you away from yourself. And what is most disturbing is the fact that many of you seek out help. You are desperate for help. And you go to your psychiatrist or your psychologist, and they want to medicate you because they don't want to deal with your emotions. Because they want you to remain in one side of your brain so that you cannot align with the fifth dimensional reality of self. And where does it start? Everyone knows it starts within and then it goes externally. So if you're not in alignment, the world isn't in alignment. It makes sense, right? So turn off your news so that you're not being triggered. They're triggering you emotionally for a reason. If you can't watch the news and have discernment and not be triggered, then you shouldn't be watching it. If you can listen to the truth and you can find sources of news that are telling you the truth, then listen to that. It's certainly not on mainstream. Listen to that. When you lend your energy to the truth, you amplify it. When you lend your energy to fear and destruction and anger, you amplify that, right? We spoke about that before, and that's what they're vying for, your energy. That's your consciousness. That's your spirit. And they're using your emotional landscape to garnish it, to hold it. Because what you're all looking for is connection. Okay? So the brain and the physical body doesn't give you connection. What gives you connection is emotional feeling. That gives you connection. When you feel good around someone. You want to be around them more. When you feel love, you want to be around that person more. When you feel afraid, you want to be around that person less. When you're afraid of the world around you, you don't want to be part of it. Therefore, you are not inputting into it. And many of you that listen to this don't want to be part of your world at the moment. So you are not inputting into it. Because you don't feel you can connect. Because you go to people for help and they give you medication to disconnect you, and they don't talk to you, they tell you. And they abuse you by doing this. And they, we have heard many stories for many, many years, and our daughter has heard them also. And we've asked her lately to do something about it, to speak about it, because the truth needs to be out there. We've heard of many so-called mainstream therapists abusing their patients, their clients, in many different ways. So how is that healing? It's not. So what you're looking for is someone who you can trust, someone who doesn't judge you for the pain that you feel, and perhaps some of the things that you've done that's created that pain. You need to sit in front of someone who accepts you, who's willing to see a vision for you that you can't see for yourself right now, and set you on that path. They do exist. And we would suggest that you reach out to those people. And you might say, oh, well, I've got to pay for that. If I go to a doctor, I get it reimbursed. Well, how's that working for you? And why do you need to pay someone to get help? Because your medical genre doesn't allow those people to be counted as having input into your life, as being registered to be able to help you. They discredit them. And yet those people still have to pay rent, pay all their bills, support their families, etc. And they don't work 5 days a week, because if they did, they'd be exhausted. So in order to give 100% of themselves to you, a lot of these individuals maybe see 3 people a couple of times a week because they give so much, which is probably, when you look at it, less than what you earn. And they don't get a lot of what you get. So they have to pay their own health insurance and their own this and that, right? They still have to pay taxes. They still have to pay for everything. So what we're saying is, when you think about getting help for yourself and you find someone who isn't going to judge you, who's going to hold a vision for you that's positive, that's loving and kind, someone that you can trust, someone that isn't going to abuse you, it's worth it. Because you will spend less money ultimately with that person than you will running around to all of these others. And you will eventually align yourself and find peace. But we're going to tell you the biggest way to align yourself at this moment is not to be an emotional reaction, and to meditate, to sit with yourself. And if you're and open your creativity, what are we talking about? The right side of your brain. Emotions. How are emotions drawn out of you? How were they captivated? Through imagination, through creativity. Now, you know, years ago, when you didn't have Big Pharma, what did people do when they had a nervous breakdown, or they had a, you know, an emotional, let's say, or mental emergency? They took them to places of respite with clean air, sunshine. They got them gardening, arranging flowers, painting, doing, you know, pottery or something. They got them into the creative aspect to heal the emotional part of themselves that was in reaction to the world. So wouldn't it be kinder on yourselves to do something like that? Yeah, find yourselves a nice course that teaches you something, that engages you with a group of people that have a common goal of creating something together. Sing together, create together, harmonize together. Access that part of yourself that is connected to spirit. Because all this accessing the mind and the body is not connecting you to spirit. You think it is, but it's not. The part that connects you to spirit is when you finish that run and you feel emptied of any negative emotions, and you get to the point where you feel completely relaxed in your body and you surrender to a feeling of peace. That's how you get to the fifth, and we know many of you are on the journey. And we understand that the darkness is doing everything to take you away from your emotions, from your feelings, from your spirit. We're asking you not to go into it. And if you know someone, we've explained this very simply. Very simply. If you know someone who's battling with that, share this information with them. Let them listen to this recording rather than holding it for yourself. Share it. What are you doing to children? You're blocking their emotional landscape. We'll talk about that in another recording, but we really wanted you to understand how you get to the fifth. And 4D is where it's playing out. And what's 4D? Psychic. It's energetic. It's playing out energetically on you, all of you. For centuries, for thousands of years, you've been taken away from the feminine. You've been pushed into the aspect of the masculine, saying that that is mightier. That man conquers the world. It conquers animal. It conquers plants. It creates all this destruction. That intellect, academia, is the most important thing. It's the answer to everything. It's taking you away from the fact that many of those in academia knew in their heart they were doing something wrong. They knew it was creating destruction. They knew it was going in a different way. They didn't want to go in. But why did they do it? They had to shut off their own emotions, their own caring to save themselves and their own families. So when you see someone talking lies, inciting violence, rather than getting angry with them, we'd suggest that you look at them calmly, take a breath, be really calm, and say, may the truth be revealed to you. Because maybe that person's being manipulated. Maybe that person is doing it to save their family. Or maybe that person is a different type of soul to you, and maybe the truth needs to be revealed about them. May the truth be revealed. Because the truth is, you're all enlightened beings, and you are all divine. And all you're doing at the moment is allowing your physical body to house all of you. So you're surrendering your mind to your spirit, to your feelings, and your emotions are the language that lets you know where you're at on that scale. So if you're very angry all the time and you're agitated all the time, you're a little bit of a distance away from your feelings, yeah? Your feelings tell you the truth. Your emotions are a reaction or a response to what's being presented to you. So, if someone comes up to you, we'll just give you an example before we leave. If someone comes up to you and gives you this idea they want to do something and they'd like you to be part of it, it's all very exciting and you feel very excited. A lot of energy in your tummy. You're feeling extremely excited about it. I think it's a great idea, very enthusiastic. Because this person really wants you to be involved in it because you've got the sort of attributes that they need to get this thing off the ground. Right? And you go, yes, yes, yes. Immediately you say, yes, 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 I'll do it. I'll be part of it. And then it doesn't work out the way that you all wanted it to work out. Or you're a month into it or a few weeks into it. It's just not sitting with you anymore. And then you feel bad. And your energy is really not there because it's taking you away from your path and what you want to do. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just taking you away from what you really want to do. And you realize that it's actually not part of your path to co-create this with this person. And then you start to maybe cause a disruption in the whole creative process. And hating on this person because this person dragged you into it. Now you've been taken away from your path and everything else like that. And it all becomes quite horrible. And the whole thing falls down for the person who had the original idea and you. Perhaps you're no longer friends. Horrible journey. Maybe their idea was a really, really good one. And your feeling, I want to just explain to you the difference between feeling and emotions. So when that person described that project to you, you got very emotional. You were caught up in their emotions, what they wanted. You wanted to be part of that. It felt good. But had you spent a few days and said to that person, yeah, it's a great idea, I really love it. Can I just give a few days or a week and let it sit with me and see if it's right for me? And you might go off and let it sit with you for a few days and see, I really love the idea. I love what this person's doing, but can I contribute it to it? Is this my path? Is this really what I want to do? Is this what I want to lend my energy to? And you might notice that enthusiasm and that excitement starts to die off over a couple of days. And you start to realize, actually, no, it's not my path, because, I'm really into this. I'm not so much into that. So then you might say to that person, look, I've really given it some thought and I love the idea, but I just don't think it's my path at the moment. I feel I'm going in a different direction. However, at any point when this project is halfway through or it's finished, I would love to share it with others. I'd love to support you in some way. But I really don't feel it's for me to give energy to it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to wish you well, and I'm going to see if there's anyone I know that might be able to support you, that be in direct alignment with what you're doing. That's being in alignment with your feelings. Your spirit has now communicated to you whether or not it's on your path. And what you've done is you've allowed that person to bring into their circle those that it's their path, their spiritual calling, to co-create that with them, and allowed the project to move forward, whilst you've gone on and brought the people around you that are going to co-create with you or with them, with each other. It's a circle. That's why it's called co. It's a circle. So all of the times that you've gone to co-create something with someone and you felt very excited, and then it's all turned to rubbish and you've hated on each other and destroyed someone's project that was actually originally a good project, I want you to think about that. Because at any point you could have turned around and said, no, thank you. I wish you well. But instead you go into a power struggle with them and you want to turn it into your life's path. When it's not. And it's okay for you to have different life's paths. So it's about being in touch with the truth of who you are and who they are. And understanding that your emotions are a response or a reaction. They're not necessarily the answer. However, they can guide you to the answer. And that is why it's important to work on your emotional body at this moment, so that you can hear your truth and align with your spirit. Because that is in fact all that is stopping you. You already know intellectually what it is. You know all about it. You just need to feel it, not emote it. You need to feel it. So that's what we wanted to communicate with you about today, to help you, to guide you into the field. And, our daughter, we've asked our daughter to run some courses now to help individuals, to help you if you want to speed things up a little, get in contact with yourself, the true essence of yourself, and remove any energetic interference or what can we say about that? You've all been influenced in some way or another. And sometimes you need or require a little bit of support. And when you come together in co-creation, you amplify that supporting of each other. You amplify your own vibration. When you find someone who's willing to sit with you Well, let's put it to you this way. Any of you who've had an interaction with our daughter and received some guidance and help from her, it's never dot on an hour, is it? She would never just cut you off. She spends time with you. She goes deep with you. She doesn't judge you. You're in a safe place. And this is important. Because it's not about having a patient. It's about co-creating a world together, meeting at the heart, and having a loving response to each other. Not medicating you, controlling you, dominating you, intimidating you, and making you feel even worse when you leave. It's about accessing the truth of you, and it certainly isn't all the pain that resides in you. And that's what a good healer will do. They will access the truth of you. And that truth is that you are all enlightened beings. And whatever you've been carrying on behalf of everyone else and your own experiences that have hurt you, disconnected you, whatever you've been carrying is a burden and needs to be released. And the dark knows it. And the dark knows that it can't stop it. All it can do is slow it down. And we're saying, let's speed it up. So we thank you for listening. We thank you for co-creating. And we leave you this day in our love and our light and our truth and our blessings. We thank you so much for allowing us to share with you this day. Goodbye.